Two women are standing in the same coffee line on a Tuesday morning. They're the same age, 42. They earn almost exactly the same salary. From the outside, their lives look identical. But one of them can retire in 12 years and the other one will still be working at 70. The difference between them isn't income. It isn't luck. It's a single number, one that most people are terrified to look at. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you that number for every stage of life so you can finally answer the one question that actually matters. Are you ahead or are you behind? Here's the uncomfortable truth we have to start with. The average American has almost nothing saved for retirement. According to the Federal Reserve, 54% of households have no dedicated retirement savings at all. Zero. And among the people who are saving, the numbers are far smaller than anyone admits at a dinner party. So if you've ever felt behind, I need you to understand something first. You are not comparing yourself to people who are winning. You are comparing yourself to a country that is quietly losing. The goal of this video is not to make you feel bad about where you are. It's to show you exactly where the finish line sits and how much time you have left to reach it. Because here is the one idea that explains this entire video. It was never about how much you made. It was about how early you started. Income is loud. It buys the car, the vacation, the appearance of success. But wealth is quiet, and it's built by one boring force that almost nobody respects until it's too late. Time. Time is the only ingredient in this recipe that you cannot buy back later, no matter how much you eventually earn. So let's walk through your life decade by decade and find out where you really stand. Let's start in your 20s. This is the decade with the smallest numbers and the largest power, and almost nobody realizes it while they're living in it. The typical American in their late 20s to early 30s has a median retirement balance of around $15,000. That's it. If you have more than that, you're already ahead of half the country before you've even hit your peak earning years. But here's what makes your 20s the most valuable decade of your entire financial life. A single dollar invested at 25 is worth dramatically more at retirement than a dollar invested at 35, because it gets an extra 10 years to compound. Take Maya, who started putting just $200 a month into an index fund at 23. She's not rich. She waits tables and shares an apartment. But by the time she's 65, that small, boring habit started when she had almost nothing, quietly grows into over $500,000. Her friends who wait until 35 to start, earning far more money, never catch her. Not ever. That is the brutal, beautiful math of starting early. So if you're in your 20s right now, ask yourself honestly, are you ahead or are you behind? Now let's move into your 30s. This is where life gets loud. The salary climbs, but so does everything else. The bigger apartment, the wedding, the first kid, the car that finally feels like an adult bought it. The median retirement balance for people in their late 30s to early 40s sits at roughly $35,000. And this is the decade where two people who earn the exact same paycheck begin to split into two completely different futures. Consider two co-workers, Jordan and Priya, both earning $80,000 a year. Jordan lets his lifestyle grow with every raise. Nicer car, nicer everything. Always spending just a little more than last year. Priya keeps her life almost exactly the same as it was at 28 and quietly funnels every raise straight into her investments before she can spend it. 10 years later, they still look identical from the outside. But Priya has a six-figure account humming in the background, and Jordan has a nicer garage and almost nothing saved. The 30s are where lifestyle creep does its quiet, permanent damage. So ask yourself, are you ahead or are you behind? Then comes your 40s, and this is the decade that decides everything. This is your last window where compounding can still do the heavy lifting for you, instead of you having to do all the lifting yourself. The median balance for people in their mid-40s to early 50s is around $60,000. And this is where the great illusion of the high earner finally collapses. Picture Marcus, a man pulling in $250,000 a year, big house, leased German cars, private school, the whole picture of success. And almost nothing saved, because every dollar that comes in already has somewhere to be. Now picture Dave, a plumber earning a third of what Marcus makes, who has quietly maxed out his retirement accounts for 15 years. On paper, Marcus is the rich one. In reality, Dave can walk away from work a decade earlier, while Marcus is trapped, one lost client away from the entire illusion falling apart. If you're in your 40s and the number scares you, here's the good news. This is still the decade where aggressive action pays off enormously. You can put $24,500 a year into a 401k in 2026. Front-load it, automate it, and even starting now, the next 20 years can still build something real. But you have to move. So ask yourself, honestly, are you ahead or are you behind? If any of this is landing, if you're doing the math on your own life as I talk, do me one small favor and subscribe. This channel breaks down the real mechanics of money every single week, in plain language with no hype and nothing to sell you. Now let's get to the 2 decades most people are afraid to look at. Your 50s. This is the decade of reckoning, but also the decade of the single greatest catch-up opportunity in the entire tax code. The median retirement balance for Americans in their late 50s to early 60s is around $88,000. Let that land for a moment, because it's about to get serious. $88,000 is the typical amount a person has just a few years before they plan to stop working forever. And here's why that number should stop you cold. We'll get to what it actually buys in a minute, and it's worse than you think. But first, the opportunity. Once you turn 50, the government lets you save even more. On top of the $24,500 limit, you can add an $8,000 catch-up contribution. That's over $32,000 a year into tax-advantaged accounts. Take Linda, who hit 50 with barely $40,000 saved and a quiet panic in her chest. Instead of giving up, she slashed her spending, moved to a smaller place, and threw everything she could into those catch-up contributions for 15 years. She didn't retire a millionaire, but she retired with dignity and options instead of fear. 50 is late. It is not too late. So ask yourself, are you ahead or are you behind? And now, your 60s and the number that ties this whole video together. This is where the abstract finally becomes real, where all those balances turn into a single, unavoidable question. Can you actually stop working? So let's do the math that nobody wants to do out loud. There's a well-known guideline called the 4% rule. It says you can safely pull about 4% of your savings every year without running out. Flip it around, and it means you need roughly 25 times your annual expenses saved up to be truly free. If you spend $40,000 a year, your freedom number is $1 million. If you spend $60,000, it's $1.5 million. Now remember that median balance for someone nearing retirement. Under $100,000. At the safe withdrawal rate, that throws off only around $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Not a month. A year. That is the gap between what people have and what they actually need, and it's enormous. But wait. You might be thinking, what about Social Security? Here's the reality check. Social Security was never designed to be your retirement. For the typical earner, it replaces only about 40% of the income you had while working, and the average check lands around $2,000 a month. It's a floor, not a plan. It keeps people from falling into poverty. It does not fund the freedom you're picturing, which is exactly why only about 5% of American households with retirement accounts have ever crossed the $1 million mark. The number most people think they'll need to retire comfortably is around $1.5 million. The number they actually have is a tiny fraction of that. This is not meant to frighten you. It's meant to wake you up while you still have time to do something about it. So let's go back to those two women in the coffee line from the very beginning. Same age, same salary, same everything on the surface. One of them can see the finish line, and one of them can't. And now you understand the only thing that ever separated them. It wasn't income. It wasn't a windfall or a rich relative. It was that one of them understood this math 10 years earlier than the other and let time do the work while she slept. That's the entire secret. Every number in this video, the 15,000 in your 20s, the 60 in your 40s, the 88 near the end, none of them are a verdict. They're just a mirror. They tell you where you are, not where you have to end up. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. You are almost certainly not as far behind as you feel, and you are never as stuck as the number makes you look in a single moment. The average person is quietly losing this game, which means the bar to get ahead is far lower than you think. Start where you are. Automate the boring part so you don't have to rely on willpower, and let the most patient force in the universe go to work for you. Because a year from now, you'll wish you had started today, and 10 years from now, you'll either be the woman who can see the finish line or the one still wondering where all the time went. So tell me in the comments, which decade are you in right now, and after watching this, are you ahead or behind? Be honest, because someone reading your comment might need the exact push you're about to give them. And if this changed the way you see your own future, the next thing to understand is how money actually grows once you start, so the whole system finally works in your favor instead of against you. This video is for education and entertainment only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research or speak with a professional about your specific situation.